Good morning, everyone. How are you? Big day today for us. Huge day for Freddie. We've got attorney Ronald Richards here. Thank you so much, Ronald, for doing this. I really appreciate it. What kind of
No
attorney
problem.
are you? What
I'm
kind
a
of attorney?
business litigation. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think it's a delay.
Yeah, I'm a business litigation attorney, real estate. I manage secured debt, do creditors in bankruptcy court, and have done criminal defense.
Amazing. So you're running a very detailed blog about the Erika Girardi and Erika and Tom case. What made you want to do it?
Well, historically, my firm has sort of exposed bad actors in the legal profession, and we've testified for the state bar before in hearings. I've testified for the United States government
Wow.
against crooked customs agent, and I've testified um, in various matters. And so we sometimes things are going on with lawyers that the public doesn't appreciate, and we could see the symptoms a mile away. And we started seeing that with Avenatti and
Oh,
other lawyers before Avenatti. And then we
yeah.
saw it with Girardi. We started seeing these symptoms of creditors' lawsuits and client complaints. And once it gets to like a certain threshold, I start going on record and exposing them and not worry about their threats of retaliation or that I got it wrong, because I know that we're correct. But it takes a little while to put the case together.
Wow. I am thoroughly impressed. Oh my goodness. So listen, blogs like yours are very important because you explain to the masses, the commoner, such as myself, all of that lawyer talk. And so we love your blog. We follow it every day. Freddie found it. And so thank you for even starting it. Now let's get into this case. Freddie, at the crust of the case.
Yeah, just so we're clear, just so you're clear, it's like a blog, but it's on Twitter at Ronald Richards. I don't have a per se blog on this. I do have other blogs, but this is just, I daily post different things from cases, and a lot of lawyers, believe it or not, follow my Twitter feed because they get on the minute information.
A lot of lawyers follow you. It's amazing. Okay, so for the people that are coming in late, really quickly, how would you describe what is the crust of this case? How would you say it was just, how would you describe it?
Well, it's a couple cases. That's why people get confused when they say stuff like, I'm going to wait for the jury. There's no jury. There's
Oh.
a family law case between Erika Girardi and Tom Girardi that has been halted by Tom Girardi's trustee, Jason Runn. There was two involuntary bankruptcy petitions that were filed, one against Thomas Girardi individually and one against his firm, which incredibly is not a separate entity. It's just Thomas Girardi, but they keep pretending it's a separate entity for whatever purpose, I don't know, maybe just because it's easier. And that's his law firm. And those are the two cases. And then we have a third case where Robert Girardi, his brother, has brought a conservatorship petition against him to basically try to have a conservator manage his affairs. And then we had a contempt case in Chicago that was brought by another attorney that was doing cases with them, and the judge held Girardi in contempt, but didn't hold him in contempt where he can throw him into custody, which I also found strange. They didn't seek that type of contempt. He just entered a judgment against him for $2 million.
Wow.
That was the Edelson PC, for those that were just wondering which one. That's the Chicago one.
Yeah, that was the Edelson case where they brought a contempt, which was really sort of the ripping the Band-Aid off, because most of the time when a federal judge says, where's the money, most lawyers figure out a way to get it. In this case, Girardi brought a local Los Angeles criminal defense attorney who started the defense of, I can't communicate with my client, he's suffering from certain mental limitations, and now we're, into the full fold where they've created this conservatorship defense.
And I wanted to go into the conservatorship because yesterday I messaged you on Twitter and asked how come that Tom has been able to get Robert to be his conservator when the court hasn't actually seen any medical evidence he does have short-term memory loss. You answered that was because no one had made any opposition. Why wouldn't people make opposition against this?
Okay.
Well, it's a great question, Freddie. I mean, it seems like these creditors sort of think it's better, since Girardi is doing nothing, to have somebody to basically deal with. And if you noticed last night, I posted at Ronald Richards, and it's great that all these people have been following us because I get a lot of tips from them and we work collaboratively together. But I posted that the trustee is moving to evict Girardi from his Pasadena residence. And these creditors are just very naive about the global financial landscape. So they just think that if there's other people corralling these assets, maybe it's better than relying on Girardi. But the reason to specifically answer your question, they posted that they allowed the temporary conservator to only sign contracts for him, like the housekeeper, the insurance companies, not really accepting the fact that he needs a conservator. There's apparently a capacity declaration being drafted by a medical professional, but it's all part of a global defense strategy to prevent him from getting indicted, or to set the defense of mental defect if they try to charge him criminally, that he won't be able to stand trial due to his advanced mental infirmities.
And going to the Pasadena house that you were talking about, you said, and I've seen, having looked at the address and things, that it doesn't seem to be worth $16.5 million. Why haven't the trustees done more research into finding the actual value? And because, as well, we also know that there are quite a few mortgages that have been taken out against it. So realistically, they need to be working out how much they're going to get out of that, and how do you think they'll sell that on a site like Trulia, or for a property auction or bankruptcy auction?
Well, that's another great question, Freddie. It seems like you're definitely following the facts here. I appreciate that. First of all, the basis of the $16.5 million valuation was a self-reported disclosure that Girardi made on a financial statement. So we all know that people overvalue their own houses.
Right.
The debt structure on there is close to $7 million. And then there's a judgment from the Rue Gomez of $11 million. So there's no way that Girardi has any equity in the house, and you can't sell it. And that's only off my cursory review. There's other judgment creditors that have recorded liens. It is amazing to me that the trustee didn't do a title report to see who the lien holders were. Those are called involuntary lien holders when you get a judgment and you record it, versus secured lien holders. When you borrow money, they put a deed on the house or a mortgage, depending on what part of the country you're in. So in this case, they can't sell the property because the lien holders would have to consent to reducing their lien. And as long as the lien is valid and wasn't recorded in the last 90 days as a preference lien, the trustee's going to have problems undoing that lien. It's going to be a big headache for them. And I don't know why they're rushing to do this. It just seems to me that I guess they're trying to do something, and a lot of times, and that's why we report on this, because we have a specialized skill set. I don't know if you remember the Rutger Hauer movie. The movie not with Rutger Hauer, with Liam Neeson, Taken. I don't know if you ever remember that movie.
Yes.
In the scene when he was on the phone telling the kidnapper he had a specialized set of skills and not a lot of money. That's kind of what my firm does, in the sense that we have a specialized skill set. Nobody can peel off divorce cases, probate cases, real estate records, tax records, litigation records, bankruptcy records, all in a quick potpourri of records, and then amalgamate it into something that's digestible by the average person. So that's why we're doing it, because otherwise it doesn't alert people of the ongoing fraud that's going on. And the more people that know about it and report about it and watch shows like Sharrell's World and other Twitter feeds and talk about it, these things get left, unreported. And that's the power of collective knowledge and why we're doing it, because it's expanded now, and more victims come forward, and we direct them in the right place, and it gets the attention of different authorities. For example, yesterday, the state bar finally started following the bankruptcy case. So things are happening, because unbelievably, this guy still has his law license. I mean, he needs to have it involuntarily taken pending these charges. How does he still practice law? He could legally dupe a new victim without anybody stopping him.
Yeah, I wanted to move on to that. So from what I've understood from what the state bar have said, that he's technically been suspended, why won't they move into expelling him from the bar, when it seems quite clear over the years that he has gone against those rules that the state bar have?
Well, I mean, the problem with the state bar sometimes, if it's a big firm and it's a lawyer that's been a lawyer 40 years and somebody makes a complaint, there's a resistance to do something about it. And you need to have some evidence. A lot of clients just file complaints because they're unhappy with the fees. So they're not really bona fide complaints. It has to be clear and convincing evidence. A lot of complaints are really groundless, so the state bar does a good job of ferreting those out. But Girardi has been doing this for years, where he's financed one case into another. And I mean, what I've uncovered is shocking. I mean, every case has a lender attached to it. I've never seen a lawyer so leveraged. And if all lawyers in this space, in this class action space, in this large scale personal injury space, are so broke that they need to borrow their fees or their receivables before they even settle the cases, that's a problem. I mean, we may need to have regulation, because Girardi is the classic horrible businessman that kept borrowing and leveraging till he had nothing left to leverage anymore. I mean, but these dummy lenders were lending him so much money over and over again. It's like giving the heroin user the syringe over and over again. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm going to jump in really quick and take a question from the chat. They said, is Tom allowed to still live in the home while all of this paperwork is going back and forth?
That's a great question. The trustee's order says he has to get out in 2 weeks. However, he did say that if Girardi cooperates with him, that he would maybe let him live there during the marketing. And so he's kind of hedging it. I think what happened is they went to the lawyer for Robert, who has the temporary conservatorship, and said, can we get in? And then they gave him a bunch. Basically said no. So that's what prompted the motion I reported on last night.
Go ahead, Freddie.
So obviously with, I want to move on to Erika briefly. And a lot of people have been questioning. Obviously, we know that Tom put around $23 million into EJ Global, but where is this housewives money and the Fenty money going? How is she able to spend money, and where's that? Is that I'm guessing being put in an account in her name that Tom doesn't have an interest in?
Well, I don't believe they have a separate property. I don't believe they have any separate property, in the sense that I think that Tom and her are, never had that type of relationship, except his house was always his. But with respect to the money that was from the movies or from the housewives, that probably goes into an account that she just controls, but it's still community property income. She did file for divorce, so what she earns now is not community property income. But if there was $23 million of community property segregated to her, she's going to be responsible to put that back in the estate. She's not going to get away with keeping it. So it's just a temporary situation.
And and obviously with that seeming to be the case, that this $23 million is in her account, why haven't the courts been making her cooperate with that? Why are they sort of waiting for potentially creditors and things to sue her to get that money?
Well, because a court just can't take your money. I mean, there has to be a procedure, and she's a defendant in some lawsuits, but there's no judgments yet. And the bankruptcy trustee could take back community property, and probably will once they know where it is.
I'm going to pull a question from the chat. Is it unreasonable to believe that Erika knew nothing about what Tom was doing?
Yes, it's unreasonable because they are. There's no indication that they had separate tax returns or separate assets, and there's no. They were married a long time, and she saw the lawsuits coming to the house and all the reporting on it, and there's a tremendous amount of knowledge that it would just be hard to believe that she didn't have direct knowledge of this. But honestly, whether she knew about it, people always say, okay, this is not like the test is not whether she had knowledge. The test is whether her community property is subject to seizure. Fortunately, no one has to prove that she knew about it for her to return any money that's been diverted to her. It has to be returned. So if
did we lose you?
Okay. No, I'm here. I'm here.
She has to return the money?
Yes, of course she's going to have to return the money. It doesn't. Yeah, let me just switch over to this. Of course she has to return the money because it's community property.
Go ahead, Freddie.
But obviously, it's community property. But for me, it just doesn't make sense. If she's got access to that, she could be spending it and just turn around to the court and say, "Well, I've blown all of that money." And I can't. What would happen if that were the case?
Well, it's a lot of money to say I blew, but let's just say she did that. There's a bankruptcy. She could be sued by the trustee. If she literally spent $23 million, I think the trustee would seek to have her thrown in civil contempt.
Wow. Another question from the chat. You guys are saying the word short-term memory loss. Is that the same thing as dementia?
They're similar species. Short-term memory loss is sort of a vague thing. It's hard for me to tell you. It's hard for me to tell you the medical difference because it has a common name, and a type of dementia, you get short-term memory loss. You could also get long-term memory loss. I mean, but I don't think for our purposes, by the way, I've had lawyers talk to him in the last 2 weeks, and he says he's in a mediation. He's very familiar with the money he owes them. So I'm not buying any of this claim that he's having any memory difficulty. And I don't believe that short-term memory loss would provide you a defense to criminal liability. I mean, you can't steal money from people and then say, I have a little bit of a memory problem, so don't prosecute me. I mean, it's kind of silly. Otherwise, that's what every older person that's a fraudster would do. You don't get a pass because you're 80 and you committed fraud for the last 5 years. It's kind of ridiculous.
Ronald, I'm loving you.
Yeah, same. You've made my week already.
Oh my God.
So I wanted to talk about the evidence that that creditors and victims may have against Tom. I believe Edelson PC in Chicago mentioned that they may have phone records of Tom and that he slammed the phone down when they implied that he was lying. And also that YouTube video you put up on your Twitter, the schmoozing with someone, I can't remember, but that also showed that Tom was quite clearly competent, knew about law practice and things like that. So do you think is that being used as evidence against him?
Yes, all that will militate against the claim that he's suffering from a mental defect. And once they submit a medical declaration, somebody, if they want to challenge it, will file a motion for an independent medical exam. It's called an IME. But like I said, I don't see anybody right now opposing it in the probate court. So if nobody opposes it, he's going to have a conservator appointed. There'll be no basis for the court to reject the application, because typically most people don't want their brother managing their affairs unless they're going to be charged for fraud and think it'll help their criminal defense.
Wow. Go ahead.
I also wanted to talk about how, obviously, I believe Tom's money has they've seized that and he's been blocked from accessing money. So how does it work? How is he paying for attorneys that he's using in these cases?
A great question. He's not using any attorneys. His brother magically got enough money to hire Shepard Mullen for the conservator case. I don't know if he dumped some money for his brother to do that. It's hard to say. But Tom has not appeared in the bankruptcy case. He didn't file his schedules. The trustee asked for an extension, and it doesn't look like he's hired any lawyer. He hired Evan Janess, a criminal defense attorney, for the contempt case, and but she's kind of dropped out, saying she can't communicate with her clients. So he's not paying lawyers. He had a divorce attorney, but that case has stayed now.
Wait, I'm confused. You're saying Tom doesn't have an attorney?
Yeah, I'm saying he doesn't, because the conservator is going to act as his attorney because he has a conservatorship. And in the bankruptcy case, the trustee has taken over his personal estate, and Tom never opposed it nor has appeared in the case. So it's totally Looney Tunes that an 81-year-old lawyer with his experience doesn't have counsel. This is why this case is, we're dealing with a first upon first upon firsts.
Do you think that could be strategy why he doesn't have an attorney?
Yes. It's part of this strategy of I'm, suffering from Alzheimer's, all the things that you may want to feel sorry for a real patient of these diseases, but not a sophisticated donor to numerous politicians and legal scion of the community for decades. It's hard to believe that right before the criminal contempt, all of a sudden now or the civil contempt, he's lost his capacity to do the right thing.
Has Erika been charged with anything?
No, she's just a defendant in a couple lawsuits that I'm familiar with. And Erika, the reason why I'm so hard on Erika is because if she had good intentions, she would disclose all of her community property. She would cooperate with the trustee. She would apologize for her
Oh, yeah.
husband's behavior and help people. But she's not. And that's because she knows that she's complicit in what's going on, and instead is posting her drinking on the beach, having a good time, and selling clothes for sponsors, and everyone thinks that's okay, and I don't think it's okay. I think that if you're married for this amount of time and you've gone on TV and you do a show together and your husband obviously has done horrible things, you need to make it right. And you should say, look, I'm donating 30% of my salary to all of my stupid husband's victims that I knew nothing about. I had $10 million in community property. I'm turning over $9 million to the trustee, and I'm going to live off $1 million. I mean, do something, not just nothing. Every fraudster always loves to play the victim card for themselves, but they never return the money. It's the same pattern. And so she should return the money and do something. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, I agree. And on this channel, we have really been following the trail of what you've been putting out, and sources that are involved in this case that have been talking to us. It seems that Tom sort of is renowned for stalling cases, even before the whole Erin RHOBH thing that I guess put him on the map as a well-known lawyer in the law world. What will happen if he stalls again, basically?
Stalls what?
If he stalls what was it? So the whole not the opposition. Oh, sorry. I've got.
This is what I think he's saying. Is there any way he can just keep delaying this and delaying it and pushing it down the road until it's like years away, like R. Kelly did?
Well, he could delay his criminal trial if he gets charged by having them have to litigate whether he has capacity to appreciate and participate in his defense. I mean, we don't charge people that are comatose because then they can't have a meaningful defense, because you need to be able to talk to your client. But this is all a charade, all right? I mean, and so it's really a question of it has delayed things because the involuntary bankruptcy between this law firm and his residence estate, it's taking these people time to hunt down these assets, which is a complicated a project. But it is going to delay things, but not that much, because now it's been moving, I would say, with the sense of urgency. But okay, how many famous people do you guys know have been charged and then all of a sudden they say that they need a conservatorship? I mean, I can't remember a time this has ever happened. So most people do something. They say, I'm really sorry. Here's how I'm going to fix it. They start making payments to people. They say, here's, X amount of money. I'm cooperating with the authorities. This is what really happened. My creditors overwhelm me. Instead, he's trying to, again, not take responsibility. It's so annoying when lawyers just don't own up. Like in yesterday's hearing, the judge was going after this lawyer because he used the credentials of the petitioning creditor's bankruptcy. And instead of just telling the judge, yeah, I pulled a fast one, or I thought it'd be convenient, he gave him this long-winded explanation, and the judge, judges don't like it. It's okay to sometimes foul or error, but you just got to own it. I mean, lawyers own their mistakes and their advice. I mean, it's the one profession where the buck stops with you. You can't delegate your decisions to other people. And in this case, Girardi is, giving lawyers a bad name because he won't own this mistake. He's now trying to say, I don't even know there's a mistake because I have a memory problem. I mean, it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. I mean, my stepdad is a retired lawyer in his 80s and
Uh-oh. He's getting to the good part, guys.
I lost it. It's silly.
Listen, it's obvious you're very passionate about this. What made you decide that you were going to out, for a better word, I don't know how to say it, corrupt lawyers?
Well, because I saw them going on television or taking positions in their civil cases that a layperson would think is true, and I would say this is ridiculous. Like I can't explain it, but it's kind of like the scene. I'll tell you the scene. It's like the scene when Harrison Ford played the doctor that was accused of murder. Do you remember that movie?
No.
It was a Harrison Ford movie, a famous movie, where he played a fugitive doctor.
Oh, I do. I remember. It's called Fugitive. Yeah.
What's it called?
Fugitive.
Fugitive, right. So he went in the hospital and there was a patient and he watched some doctor. He was a heart specialist, and he watched a doctor give this patient like a ridiculous type of therapeutic. And so he went to the nurse and said, no, give this patient A, B, and C. And he corrected him. It was like, I'll never forget the scene. And it's the same thing with lawyers. Sometimes you see lawyers spew such BS that when you see it, I'm like, I bet some people actually think this is a legitimate thing. Like my colleague who I've done a few cases with, and Rudy Giuliani, who a lot of people don't know is a really good lawyer, but all of a sudden he started spewing these election arguments. And when I would listen to the arguments in court with another colleague, Sidney Powell, who's won some big cases, they were just talking stuff for TV. It wasn't legal argument, but everyone thought these were legal arguments. And I'm like, no, they're both appealing to an audience of one, the president at the time. So I would tell my friends, don't worry, these are not legitimate arguments. Now, I didn't want to get political, so that's why I never tweeted about it. But any lawyer listening to the 60 lawsuits that were dismissed, every argument was just a political argument. It wasn't a legal argument. So I wasn't worried the election was going to get overturned because they were just coming in and talking, which sometimes if you have nothing to say and your client's sitting there, the judge will let you go on a little bit so you can just kind of make a record and your client thinks that you were arguing something. So in these cases, when these lawyers were on the hot seat and they were actually being, sort of persecuted by various people, I wanted to see, hey, is there any legitimate argument, or are these guys just stealing from their clients? Or, so I started following the Avenatti fiasco, and I realized that Avenatti was just having a problem. It was just so simple. That's how I got involved.
I love you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I mean, the public would, like you said, we wouldn't know any of these things. Do you think Tom watches your Twitter account?
Well, I do know that other attorneys that I've targeted, they have they come on under other people's names and try to argue with me. I've had that happen because I know it's the attorney, but I don't want to call him out. But I mean,
you could tell with the clips, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm not going to start defaming a lawyer or making horrible judgments unless they're really good for it. Okay, because that's why the minute I see a symptom, I can't just start calling people out. But these are not even close calls. There's serious client abuse here, serious theft from clients, and this is a serious issue that needs to be exposed. And that's why I've exposed it. I just can't ignore it. And I'm not intimidated by any crooked attorney or whatever they want to do, because might is right. And if you're telling the truth, no one's going to be able to do anything different. You can't spin this away.
Yeah. great.
The question I wanted to ask was, obviously Tom's delayed the giving him and Erika giving their joint assets. Tom's got a renowned reputation, it seems, to stalling cases. Couldn't Tom find loopholes continuously in the law and just keep on doing this?
Well, he's not going to be able to find loopholes in the law because the trustee it can basically walk in and start getting his accounts. I think he is trying to slow it down, but eventually, if he doesn't cooperate, they can hold him in contempt of court.
Wow, this is great. Go ahead.
And one of the other questions is, it's likely that Erika's definitely going to play the victim on Housewives. She's going to, I think she will probably say she had no idea about this. Could there be any legal repercussions for Erika and Bravo if it's found that they're lying about certain situations?
No, because Bravo makes Erika sign the most aggressive, comprehensive contract you'll ever see in your life, that they're not responsible for anything, and that all she's doing is going on a show. I mean, she's not doing anything. First of all, she's separated now legally because she filed a divorce petition. So she's allowed to work, and it's not community property anymore. And Bravo only has an obligation to itself to create television, and they're loving the fact that every day we're talking about a character on her show. She's probably not going to talk about it on the show, which will infuriate more and more people. But I can't tell you what they're going to do. But Bravo doesn't have exposure by hiring a fraudster. And again, it's not proven. And when I said that, I'm not concluding Erika's a fraudster. I want to be clear. I'm concluding that all of Erika's community property from Tom needs to be turned over to the trustee. The jury, so to speak, is out on whether she knew or didn't know, but it doesn't matter. I could tell you by her actions, she's not acting like someone that's sympathetic or that gives a crap about all the people that have been defrauded by her husband. So she's not really doing the right thing by doing nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you do have sort of, you know, you're married to someone for a long time. I'm sure that both of you have been in relationships. If your significant other was doing something horrible, it does reflect on you. And there's nothing wrong with doing the right thing and correcting what happened.
Exactly. Go ahead. Last question, Freddie.
One of the biggest questions, one of the $1 million questions lots of people have been asking throughout the videos we've been doing following this case is, should Erika and Tom face any jail time?
Well, Tom is looking at a large amount of jail time if he gets indicted, not just on the $2 million in Chicago that was referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office, but he's also looking at all the victims in the Central District of California, and the guidelines for this type of fraud from an attorney, which is also a breach of public trust, which is an enhancement. He's basically looking at a significant jail time. Erika, it's going to be hard to say if she's concealed assets or done anything that would aid and abet his frauds. That's how she can get looped into this. But she is looking at significant civil liability that's not going to go away. I predict ultimately she's going to have to file bankruptcy because she's not going to be able to defend the numerous actions that are being brought against her and EJ Global.
Wow. Amazing. Listen, this has been an amazing interview. I like how you're upfront and that you stand up for what's right. I'm impressed. You've got to come back. I mean, and can you tell the people what's the name of your Twitter account, because you keep it up to date? What's the name of it?
It's at Ronald Richards, RONALDRICHARDS. That's simple.
So you guys got to follow his Twitter account. He gives you up to date. I mean, you do it daily, don't you? Right?
Sometimes hourly. If the minute something's posted, I convert it and put it out there. I mean, again, I don't just post stuff just to hear myself post. I only post material things. If there's a lot of activity, like yesterday, there was a hearing, and the day before, I'm covering it. If nothing's going on, you can focus on some other interesting matter in the news cycle.
Yeah. So what's coming up next for Tom? What's the next hearing going to be about?
Whether they're going to appoint a guardian ad litem in the bankruptcy case, and whether they're going to evict him from his house. And then there's an upcoming probate, whether the conservatorship will be permanent. And then there's a bunch of civil suits against Erika that are now and other lieutenants in his law firm. Yesterday's bankruptcy hearing was so bad for these other defendants, because what was going on in that hearing is a law firm that wanted some of Girardi's clients, which the court has now diverted back to the trustee, was saying that some of these other people were lead trial counsel for Girardi, and those people are defendants in other lawsuits because they were responsible, according to those lawsuits, for getting some of the money back to these clients. They're not, all these people that work for Girardi aren't going to just say, oh, well, I knew that Tom wasn't giving the client the money, but I didn't tell anybody. It's not going to work. These are lawyers. If any lawyer that's worked for me, if I was doing something improper, believe me, they're going to report me. I would expect them to. Lawyers don't just sit around and follow, take orders. I was following orders isn't going to work when you're dealing with multiple lawyers.
So true. So true. I mean, there had to be, well, if you had to guess, did anyone know what Tom was doing? Or even,
of course they know, because they're seeing the cases settle and the clients aren't getting the money. I mean, and the other lawyer that's the co-counsel is saying, where's the money? Of course they knew. And what's so ridiculous is, like, if they should have told Tom, if you don't send that check, I'm calling the state bar. I'm telling the client. I mean, just because you work for a lawyer doesn't absolve you of your ethical duties to the client that you're both servicing. It's silly. Like, these arguments are silly. And these lawyers are going to have liability for not affirmatively reporting him.
So that's going to be David Lira and Keith Griffin, I believe.
Well, I mean, they have defense attorneys. The papers are very contested. I mean, I think there's a lot of good arguments on both sides. I'm not going to convict them. I'm going to let the judge do that, and it's going to be a liability issue, not a criminal issue. But it could move into a criminal contempt. I mean, we'll just see what they do. But there's also Robert Finnerty. He's a defendant in a lawsuit. He works for Axe now. I mean, there's other defendants that are out there. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of them right now. Some were just associates. They may have less liability, but it's a complicated situation. It's not just, hey, it's all Tom because he was on the checking account. David Lira was a signer on the checking account.
Wow. Oh my gosh. This case is going to be years. Do you think, right? It's going to take
It's going to take years, so we can do an update show every fixed time period, so all the viewers of Sharrell's World gets to see what's going on. And I think they appreciate it. People appreciate the hard facts.
Yeah, I love it. I would love that. We've got to set that up. I love your spunk. I love it.
Thank you.
Some people will be afraid, and you're not. And I have to respect you for that. Much respect. Can we get back with you and keep updating the people, telling it like it is? I have so much respect for you. It's not even funny.
All right, well, thank you so much. I will definitely reconvene after a couple more material events unfold for everybody. Amazing. I'm sure Freddie will hunt me down.
Well, thank you so much for replying. I was literally over the moon when you replied. And I'm so glad we made this happen.
Ronald, did you have any last words?
I just that the more people that collectively work together on my feed, it literally is helpful because I get a lot of information, and everybody knows I respond to questions. And if you feed us some information, we utilize that. And I think that it's important that we're specializing in a couple discrete attorney frauds and housewives issues. And I think it's enjoyable for people to see it unfold, and it provides them an insight into a world that helps them avoid these decisions or pitfalls in their own lives if they're dealing with a professional that isn't acting right. So I think it's very educational for them as well to get a little wiser.
Yeah, amazing. Love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. I'm going to let you go. I know you're really busy. Thank you so much. We will get in touch. I would appreciate it if you kept us updated on what's going on. This case is
mad.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, thank you both. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been one of the best interviews, you guys, that we have done, isn't it? I'm going to go ahead and say the best interview we've done. I'm going to leave his Twitter account in the description box. You guys have got to follow him. I'm so impressed.
Because, I mean, this is where he's putting up the lawsuits as well. He's not just giving his thoughts on what's happening here.
Oh my God, amazing. If you guys came in late, go back and watch the full interview. This was amazing. And what touched me the most in this case is that he's standing up for the victims, and no one else seems to be doing it. I mean, he's doing it. Amazing. So impressed. Freddie, thank you for finding him.
You're welcome. Well, thank you to V as well for calling him and organising the times, because obviously being in England, that was hard, so it wouldn't have been possible without her as well.
I'm deeply touched by what he's doing, because I remember the one burn victim who said, I don't have enough money to pay for my surgeries because of Tom. So we got to have him back. All right, you guys, I want to thank everyone for giving the super chats. You don't have to support the channel, and you do. I'm telling you, if you came in late, go back and watch the video of the interview in its entirety. This has to be one of the best interviews me and Freddie have ever done. So thank you guys. I know it's early, but it'll be up for the rest of the duration of Sharrell's World. I want to thank the mods for jumping in so early. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Freddie, any last words before we go out?
No, I think Ronald's answered pretty much everything that was on my mind that's happening at the moment. I'm very excited, and I really hope we can get him on again. And thanks for watching, everyone.
Awesome. All right, you guys, on 3, Freddie, let's say bye. 1, 2, 3. Bye, guys.
Bye.